Hi everyone, this is Killshot from 99 Gaming, and this is Fear the Walking Dead. Oh man, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is Fear the Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 9, fan reactions, and I've got some good stuff to talk about tonight. I think someone hit it a little bit earlier. The action was a little sporadic. It was come and go, but they had to develop the storyline, and I think we started to see the shape of this Morgan. Will he get back to talk to Rick? That was definitely something that was sort of planted in our minds, and then he takes a step back. Is he even going to make the trip? So we're not going to go kind of scene by scene. We'll do a recap tomorrow and really go in detail. What we're going to do is we're going to react to some of the most shocking things that you saw tonight. So I want to thank each of you for being here, and I'm going to kick this thing off and just ask the open question right now because I want to talk about what you want to talk about. I'm going to make a bold prediction. And the first thing that I'm going to do before I get to the bold prediction is what was the most shocking? What gave you the biggest reaction tonight that you were like, wow, I didn't really see that coming. So I'm going to call on a few people. Before we get to the rating, I'll get to that in 1 second, but I want to know kind of what surprised you the most about tonight's episode. I see Artie was not a big fan. Okay, well, you have a right to that. The box of supplies. Nothing. Pretty straightforward because of a lot of the teaser and a lot of the information that was out there. There were a couple things that I was anxious to see, and I wanted to see how this Morgan thing, I know in the stream we did a couple nights ago, it was the time frame, the time skip. How will Morgan get back to Alexandria? What will stop him from going there? And it seems like Alicia kind of stopped him in his tracks. Yeah, Lisa says Luciana was zoned out. So you can see that each different dynamic has to take shape. Lakeisha says the episode lost her. I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper because I didn't feel as much of that. I think everybody was expecting a certain amount, the group getting together. But here's a little bit of the psychology of the episode tonight. Each person either found what they were looking for or needs a little bit more. And let me give you the division and how we'll break that down. So, Luciana and Strand are in the same house. And Lucy is lost, and Strand is in perfect heaven. He's there. Almost the exact same story is playing out with John and with June. John is in his perfect place and has everything he wants. June is afraid that once they go back, she's not going to be what he thinks she's going to be. And then you've got Morgan and Al, and you've got that dynamic. So Morgan finally comes to terms, and it's a complete opposite, because when Morgan got there, he was the outcast, and now he's doing the recruiting. Whereas Al seems to be the one that is most in the middle. So I thought that was going to play out. The Charlie thing, I think there's more to this Charlie story than meets the eye. So Valerie Feldman says Charlie ran away because she wants to go back to the Vultures. I don't see that. I think, Valerie, John hit a nerve when they were playing Scrabble, and John said to Charlie, you're going to have to talk. And she makes the effort. She knows that her killing Nick has changed Luciana's life. So some people think Charlie wants to run away. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go ahead and make this prediction because I can see it happening. The writers are going to do it. The writers have done a wonderful job in manipulating us in the past, but here it is. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This is what I think is beginning to happen with Charlie. I think they are making her into just a video game idol. I want to see it happen that way. I think she's She's had some rough times, but if they can form this character, and I mentioned this about maybe 5-6 months ago, she doesn't have to be close to Clementine right now, Corporal, because Clementine, very, very similar past. Clementine was there. She had nobody, did not even know how to kill. And in playing the game and sort of going through that with Lee, you started to see how the character developed. And I think it would be phenomenal if they could start to develop her storyline. Because the thing about us is we forget. And Charlie is not as bad as Henry. She's not as bad as Negan. Corporal, I would say when I first met Clementine in the game, she was anything but a badass. She was a scared little girl. Absolutely, she has to be taught. And you can't judge her based on what's just happened. What they did tonight was a big, big move. You can't underestimate the fact that she ran away from John. She wasn't talking to anybody. The walker was coming up on her. She was completely in shock. But she wants to start to make things right. That book and returning that book is a turning point in her storyline. Just store it. Just put it there. It will be a topic of conversation in the future. Clementine's not a little girl anymore. I agree with you. But they have to have a starting point, is what I'm saying. You can't look at Clementine and say, well, she's been through 3 different video games and she was always that way, because she wasn't that way. She had to go through the relationship with Lee. She had to go through the relationship with Kenny. She was on the train. She had to learn to hold a gun for the first time. The story was not even about Clementine in the beginning. It was Lee's story. And I'm not saying Charlie's going to take over the story. What I'm saying is don't underestimate the power that when they start to get a little bit of momentum, and that was a turning point. It's already started turning Luciana. Luciana wanted to kill her. And in tonight's episode, you could see the character of Luciana start to change. So for me, that was something that I called on with the writers, and I thought they did a really good job. More to come. You can't change people's perspective in an episode or 2 episodes or several, but I'd like to see kind of the way that goes down. Strand is at his, I guess, Strand went full circle. One of the lines that happened tonight was that John told Strand, I was a cop, and he said, well, I was a millionaire. And I think Strand is enjoying that, at least for a certain amount of time. Something has to happen with Strand to push him back toward the group. Strand's not going to be a Daniel, or I don't think he's going to be somebody that chooses to stay behind. But each one of these characters is going to have to find purpose. So the Night King says, I would rate this episode soap opera a 0. I'm going to say there was a little bit more depth to it. Maybe if you're looking for just kind of like thoughtless entertainment, it might have been a 0. I think you're going to have to dig into it a little bit more. Because some of these episodes, and especially as we mentioned tonight, you got to create the roadmap. Morgan has went full circle, and Morgan is the shepherd. Alicia is dealing with the fact of whether or not she needs to be Alicia or whether or not she needs to be Madison. That was kind of thrown in there at some point. Drama King says they were all depressed in some way and they're dealing with it differently. Most were. I would agree. I think 6 out of the 8 characters were. So, you know what we're going to do, because we got some people popping in, some people popping out, and we're going to get this. So this is what I'm going to tackle, because I got 5 pages worth of notes. So I'm kind of prepared. So the first thing I'm going to do, just out of raw entertainment value, the show itself, let's just get everybody's opinion. 1 to a 10, tonight's episode, what you thought the episode scored, and what you thought the episode provided, or what you thought the episode lacked. And I'll approach both those questions. I got Jimmy's Jammin'. Jimmy's Jammin' with Super Chat says, thought the episode was amazing. I can't believe he started recruitment for Virginia yet. And this is about what I expected. I expected a lot of middle-of-the-pack scores. And I'm going to tell you why I rated it much higher. So Pete D is 7. We got some 4s in there, some 7s. Tara says 5 to a 6, building for the future. 6, 8.5s, 9s. So it provided something different for each person. Emmy, of course, a 12. Daddy Corleone says 7, but a necessary foundation to build upon. And I agree. But that's why we break it down. Because first of all, I'm not going to come out and say it's a 10. I'm not going to try to make you believe it's a 10. It's not what I do. I'm going to give you my opinion of where I thought it landed and what the potential of the episode could be. So I'm going to give it an 8. Maybe an 8 point something. Maybe an 8.1, 8.2. You know what? I'll give it slightly better than an 8. Not as low as an 8, but not as good as an 8.5. For one, there was a lot of anticipation. It was hyped up. But as I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, I thought they did a decent job putting the characters in a certain moment in time. Because they do have to push those characters. They do have to do certain things with those characters. The Charlie storyline for me, I think, could become very important. And this could be something that I go back on it and reassess it and say, you know, now that Charlie has become this, I like the way the writer started to plant the seeds. The Alicia storyline is another one that's very interesting to me. That she feels that she's got to help now. That her mission is to save people. And if she doesn't save people, she gets these visions of, what would my mom do? That she's almost seeing Madison as more of a hero than I thought Madison was. And the reason I think that's important is because it's her mom. She's going to see her as a tougher, stronger figure than maybe the rest of us do. The storm is something that I'm not sure how I feel about the storm. I thought we were going to see the storm and it would go away, but it looks like this storm is going to be around for a couple more episodes. So with that, I think they might be milking the hurricane a little bit, because it looks like it's really going to get good next week. I don't think the box of stuff is going to last, so they should have taken it all. I thought that was a little ironic, is, here's this box of stuff with a note that says, take what you want, leave what you don't. We'll see you further down the road. If those walkers are flying through the air, that box of stuff is completely trashed. So whatever supplies were in there, not worth it. Just a little tidbit. I thought the real Easter egg of tonight's show, and this is the part that I do have to react to, is Morgan's conversation about Rick. And this scares me so much because when The Walking Dead, a lot of times they put something so obvious out there, it's used for effect, and it never happens the way they say it's going to happen. So if you didn't feel a little something when Morgan said, I want to look him in the eye and tell him he was right about needing people. And now it's like a race against time. Will any variation of that ever happened? Because you realize that barring some weird crossover, barring some going back in time, people forget Morgan's journey started basically with Rick's journey. And although we've lived through Rick for the most part, Morgan has been there, and Morgan had to get away and had to deal with his son, and then came back, and then the issue with the wolves, and then he went to find Carol, and then he realized he was changing with this, seeing visions of Jared and what was going on with Henry and all the stuff. He just had to get away. Spends a little bit of time in Texas and then appears to be cured, appears to be ready to go back and just tell his friend, I should have stayed. You were right. So I hope that's not the last time. I hope at a minimum they at least get to talk and Rick does survive it. I'm just catching up on a couple comments. Hang on. I'm catching up. I actually see you up there, Epic. So Epic says, why didn't Morgan go after Alicia? He said he wasn't going to let what happened to Nick happen to Alicia. This Morgan-Alicia thing, Epic, it's going back and forth. So Morgan goes there. He wants to recruit people. He knows everybody's lacking something. And he thinks he can get them all to Alexandria, and they got a better way of life to get them up there. But Alicia hit a nerve. And I think she's got Morgan kind of confused right now. There's going to be more to that story. But when she kind of turned the whole conversation around and said, well, why can't you stay with us? It gave him pause. And I guess that's the part of the question that left me a little bit confused. I'll get back to that in 1 second because I want to super chat and I want to ask the group that question and let it sink in a little bit. Jimmy's Jammin' says, kills just me, or does there seem to be a special like bonding between Alicia and Morgan? Do you think at least Alicia may go with him? I'm not ready to make this prediction yet. But I can't even do it. It's way, way too early. I'll make a minor prediction. I think Alicia is going to be a very strong leader. If she makes it to Alexandria, I'm not going to say she's going to lead the entire group, but I think she's going to be somebody that's going to have to be reckoned with. But I don't know if they will make it back to Alexandria. I think Alicia basically made Morgan stop and realize, like, but you have a new group of people that need you here. So here's the question that I want to pose to the group. Will there still be a road trip to Alexandria? Or did Alicia make Morgan stop in his tracks and realize that they need to just plant some roots right where they're at? Still seem like we got more thinking it's going to happen that way. Bluff says yes. Drama King says negative. Chosen One says season 5 road trip. So it's looking more 75, 80% of you still think yes. I'm going to go on record and say yes too, because I think that's the excitement. I think that is really the whole allure to what's going on right now. But remember, the stream we did the other night, we said, what could possibly happen to slow them down and make it take longer to get there? So I'm going to give you, hold tight everybody, hold tight. Because I caught something tonight that in a year, you're going to remember it, and you're going to go back and say, whoa, Kills, I can't believe you caught that the night they showed it. So hold on, hold tight. Hopefully you guys are ready for this. Remember that Alicia tried to save the guy in the lumberyard. And she was late. She kept saying, we don't have time. We don't have time. We got to do this. And when she realized, Morgan had to tell her, like, he's been like that for several days. But the fact that Morgan was talking about Rick, if something happens to Rick, the way that scene just played out between Morgan and Alicia, the shoe is going to be on the other foot. And Morgan will be the one blaming himself for not leaving earlier, for sticking around and trying to recruit people, for trying to help people, that he didn't get there sooner to help Rick. I just got a feeling, and that is dependent on whether or not Rick is captured. But even still, if something happens to Rick somewhere down the road, when I was watching that scene, I was like, this is like, it's showing it to us way, way too early. And you're right, Crystal, for having left in the first place. Not just the delay, but not being there. So part of this time manipulation, and part of what frustrates a lot of people, I know a lot of you, it wasn't, the episode wasn't a 9, it wasn't a 9.5. I think it had to be intentionally slow, and we don't always like that, but the more we dig into this episode, I think you're going to find some things that you actually can walk away with and feel pretty good about. And there's always a ton of Easter eggs. I'm going to go back and I'm going to look into the music, the song. I like the fact that there's a lot of symbolism, and I like it. I like the hidden clues and I like the symbolism. But the fact that Luciana was sort of drowned in her sorrows and listened to music to sort of pick her up. I love music, and music kind of does that for me. But had Strand not been there, the thing that Luciana enjoyed would have gotten her killed. And I thought it was good timing, and it was also added a little bit of humor. She's there completely oblivious, and Strand's in the back drunk killing a walker. So I thought the symbolic nature of that, to me, was good. The Scrabble, the irony of playing Scrabble, and Scrabble is a game of words, but yet Charlie's not saying a word. So I thought that was very ironic, and John is kind of using that twofold. One, it's important to him, and it really is the basis of his relationship with June, but he's trying to use that as the basis to reestablish the relationship with Charlie. And that actually had a long-term effect on Charlie, because she realized that now I've got to leave and make this right. So I thought that was a good play as well. And E-Beach, I think that's a good point. And a lot of people won't. E-Beach says that Charlie killed Nick and can't forgive that yet. And if it were an adult, it would probably be much harder. But I think the thing with these kids around this age on the show is we sort of grow through them. Carl did a lot of dumb stuff, and I liked Carl. Enid was okay, and from what I'm hearing, Enid's going to play a bigger part. So I might gravitate a little bit more toward Enid if they can change a few things with her character. I think Henry's still got some possibilities. It's a good point, Barbara. Yeah, if you really want to get down to it, Barbara is correct. Charlie didn't kill Nick. Frank killed Nick, and they had to write it in that way. But I get where you're coming from. I'm just reading through some comments. Sound is still here. I would just say, I think there's time to redeem Charlie, and I think when the writers redeem her, they're going to redeem her in a big way. Let me go through a couple notes here, see if there's some other bullet points that we want to jump on. Well, as we talked about the other night, we said, what is going to slow Morgan down? And the weather was something that we talked about. We talked about maybe some bridges being torn down. They'd have to find an alternate route. Stuff like that, I think, could. Another enemy was something we talked about. But I don't know that we really dug into a sense of obligation. And I think Morgan, just the look on his face, you could see he felt a sense of obligation. Like, this might be my new family, and this is where I'm needed at this point. Rick doesn't need him. Well, I mean, he might. But Morgan does not feel like Rick needs him because they figured it out. They're in a good spot. They're building things back up. Yeah, Drama King. Althea's truck is it's taking a beating right now. Let's just put it that way. And you know what? I'm totally okay with many people saying it's a 7. As long as they build on it, I'm fine. I did not think it was a bad episode. I thought it was a necessary episode. And these types of starters sort of get forgotten because if next week is really good, part of it could be because of what I don't want to use the word endure, but you know what I'm saying, is part of it could be because we just had to be patient. So, Chosen One, Althea quoting her mom at the end, Georgie relation. It might be a stretch, but we've seen more coincidental things in the Walking Dead universe. So, Samantha, I would say that as well. So, Samantha, you might have just kind of articulated what I wanted to say. Not bad. We were just anxious to get things going. So, one, there was a lot of hype around this episode. And because we thought, the Hell's on Wheels guy in the wheelchair, we're going to see that. We didn't see that. So, we didn't really know what was going to be this episode and the next episode. And the storm is ramping up. So, we didn't really get to see the full effect of the storm either. But we know it's there. The story was a little bit more. And here's what I think could have made it. I think what could have taken this episode from a 7 for most of you to a 9, or from an 8 for me, maybe to a 9, is less of the Alicia storyline and more of the, I want to see some alligators and I want to see some hurricane and I want to see all that cool stuff. And that's why I'll go back and say, that might be very important for us in the future, is to see how Alicia is either going to deviate from Madison's role, how she's going to feel obligated to protect everybody because she couldn't save her mom. So the thing I'd say with that is we're going to get it. We're going to get all those neat things, and we're going to meet all those neat people. But that 20 minutes that they devoted to Alicia is important. And here's something that we know is going to happen because we saw it in the Comic-Con trailer. At some point, Alicia and Strand are going to be sitting in the hallway drinking. So I think they had to show the division. And it looks as if Alicia is going to find a way to save people in a different capacity. So, for example, Strand seems like he's just at his, utopia. But he's not. He's hurting. Strand is drowning out his sorrows because of how much he loved Madison. That's the reality. And he's not talking about it to anyone. He's just like, look at this 1961. This is the best stuff. I'm just going to, this rock is deteriorating, and I'm just going to drink and enjoy all the amenities that life has to offer. But he might be taking the thing with Madison worse than anybody there because of what Madison did for him. And I think Alicia is going to, we see that right now, and we see how the characters are really struggling, that she's going to realize the only way to sort of get him back to being himself is to sit down and have a drink with him. And the way she's going to really keep the group together a little bit more, she's going to have to do something to save Charlie or to work with Charlie. And I think Alicia's connection with Charlie and Luciana's connection with Charlie is what's going to allow us to start to let Charlie grow and accept that. And it appears she's already able to turn the tables on Morgan. So I see her able to positively impact 3 people already. And the fact that her and Lucy both lost Nick, that connection I think will strengthen as well. I think she's ready. I think she's set to really be the star of the show. Pete D says, I'm starting to like Strand. I'm sure he will let me down. Yeah, Pete, characters you like, you need to start liking Tara a little bit more. So Crystal says, will Alicia and Morgan become our past seasons, Madison and Strand? You know what? I don't think so. I think it'll be a totally different dynamic. But here's something that Fear the Walking Dead is, I think they're going to make a very conscious effort to do this. I think they're going to try to develop the characters equally. Now, there will be people that stand out a little bit more. Morgan's going to stand out a little bit more. Alicia's going to stand out a little bit more. But they probably, The Walking Dead learned the hard way, if you put all your eggs in Rick's basket and Rick leaves, that's a bad thing. And they were doing that with Nick and with Madison. And luckily they changed this season a little bit more. But you can't be held hostage by these actors if you want to create a good long-term show. And the actors are always going to rise to the occasion. I mean, that's what they get paid to do. They're there to do a great job. But at the same time, those of us wanting to be entertained when, Frank leaves or Andy leaves or some of these people leave, it changes quickly. That's a good point. I mean, Morgan is there, but if Morgan does not get the group rallied around and change to get them going back, I think his story's done. If they want to keep Lenny on the show and they want to develop this, and I know Morgan doesn't die, his purpose has got to be to get him back to Alexandria somehow. It may take a little while. So Samantha says, do I think that Fear will make it past season 5? Or are they wrapping things up? I don't think they make it past. I think they make it to the end of season 5. I think next season is the last season for Fear. And E. Beach, that's a good question. If Morgan gets them back to Alexandria, where does this story go? I'm not sure, but I think there's more opportunity for him to have a story back with that group after he leads them back, or he dies. But to me, his only story is to lead them back, because Morgan is the connection. So if the shows are ever going to merge, he's got to be the person to do it. Some good ratings. All right, we have ran through 45 minutes like super, super quick, everybody. I want to respect everybody's time, and of course, Talking Dead is back on in a couple minutes with Chris Hardwick, so we're not going to compete with that. I want you guys to either get some rest or, go check out and be the true fans that we are. I'm going to go check it out. I'll have some comments on that tomorrow night. Join us again tomorrow night at 9:30. We will do a complete recap of Fear the Walking Dead. We'll also talk about Talking Dead, some things that we picked up on tonight. And historically, when we give 6s and 7s, after people have 24 hours to sort of think about all the hidden clues and a couple things that other people pick up on, it usually adds about a half a percentage to it. So we'll dig into this a little bit more tomorrow night. Be ready. Don't hate on it just yet. And sometimes it really takes 2 weeks to appreciate the first episode, especially if there's a carryover connection. I think that storm is going to be a big, big deal. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for being a part of our countdown earlier. We do this every single week. Special shout out to all the Patreons that support this channel. Thank you so much. Also to the sponsors. If you guys are brand new here, hit the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Hang out with us if you're interested in supporting the channel. Look in the comments down below. I get that question all the time. So it gives you links to everything. You want to buy some Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, 999 Army Connection correlated gear. There's a link down below. And just give me a quick 999 in chat. And I'm not going to do the super chats I'm not going to do the shout outs because we've got 1 minute and I know some people want to take off. So I've got a ton of shout outs tomorrow. But thanks to the super chatters, and a special thanks to everybody, every one of you, for your comments, for your interaction. Everybody's part of the 999 Army. So I'll do one big super shout out to everybody here. You guys slap the like button, and I will see you at 9:30 tomorrow night. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy Talking Dead. Peace.